it's the story that's dominating the headlines amid growing allegations of sexually inappropriate behaviour against presenter Gregg Wallace.
The Masterchef star has denied the claims. He did spark further backlash, though, when he posted a video to Instagram blaming middle-class women of a certain age for the allegations against him. They're comments for which he has since apologised, though.
I have worked with over 4,000 contestants. There's been 13 complaints in that time. Now, in the newspaper, I can see the complaints coming from a handful of middle-class women of a certain age just from Celebrity Masterchef. I want to apologise for any offence that I caused with my post yesterday and any upset I may have caused to a lot of people. I wasn't in a good headspace when I posted it. I've been under a huge amount of stress, a lot of emotion. I felt very alone, under siege yesterday when I posted it.
Yesterday, the Prime Minister weighed into the debate, calling the comments inappropriate and misogynistic. Yet, despite growing demands for Masterchef to be pulled off air, the BBC made the decision to still air the Masterchef Professionals semi-final last night. OK, Nick Ferrari and Saeed Awasi join us now alongside Gregg Wallace's former colleague, Chef Aldo Zilli. Good morning to you.
Before we get their thoughts on this, former MasterChef contestant Jackie Kearney joined us live from her home in Italy this morning. Jackie, thank you for joining us. I'd imagine as a contestant on the show with your own experience, a lot of what you're reading and seeing is bringing back your experiences as well. I think you were a guest judge, not just a contestant, but a guest judge back in 2017 as well.
Yeah, I was a guest judge from 2012 to 2017. So I returned 6 times. So I've had quite a lot of exposure to Gregg's lewd comments and the kind of behaviour that just kind of went unchecked, really. And it was it was just a very normal situation in the Masterchef studio for Gregg to make those kinds of comments and for no one to speak about it. It was just normalised, it seemed, amongst production.
So, Jackie, you started as a contestant. You've ended up working alongside Gregg, clearly, as a judge as well. Can you just talk about the difference from being a contestant and being a judge? And what are the comments that you're talking about? What sort of things?
Well, there was the kind of comments that you expect to hear from a building site when you're walking past as a woman. Maybe not so much now for me, because I'm a middle-class woman of a certain age. So yeah, that is why when he said that, that's why I decided to speak out, because I just felt so angry at his criticising the women who had spoken out, instead of just saying, I'm really sorry that the things that I said humiliated you and upset you, and just stop and think for a minute. And when he didn't, that's when I decided to speak out about it, because I knew that he was trying to like whitewash it as though it was nothing. And it's because it's to do with the context of it being said in a professional studio. So when somebody's like wolf whistling you or commenting on the skirt that you're wearing or your legs, it makes you feel uncomfortable. But when you're in the street and it's being shouted at you from a building site, which I have to say doesn't really happen to me these days, but when it did, I was ready to answer back. Whereas when you're in a professional studio, it's humiliating. It's you don't know how to respond. You're kind of shocked. You stop. You don't know what to say. You kind of feel numb. You're like a rabbit in the headlights, you know.
What was the reaction of the crew? Because undoubtedly, if you're on the set of a live recording, there will be producers, there will be executives, there will be high-level members of that production team that would have heard it.
Yes, that's who I'm disappointed with, the high level of the members of production, because he was mic'd, which makes me think that people were hearing what he was saying. And that was so shocking that why wasn't someone saying anything? After I'd sort of scuttled off to the toilets and had a bit of a cry and got myself together, because I had to film that day. And, you know, this isn't my job to be on TV. It's like, it just happens to be part of me in my work as a food writer and a chef, a freelance chef. And so you kind of, it was just, nobody said anything. So when I came out of the toilets, I was even more shocked because I was expecting somebody to come over and say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry he said that to you. But nobody did. But I do understand why, more junior staff wouldn't, or because you feel like you've got a lot to lose speaking up about this kind of stuff. Can I just say, I've already had abuse last night through my phone, on email. Like, when you speak up about things like this, you get backlash and it affects your reputation. And that's the reason, exactly what women are saying now, the women who've spoken out, is they're at a point in their life where they're a lot more confident, they're a lot more able to speak out. And it's very difficult for younger people and younger women to speak up when those things happen in that moment. And if you wait until afterwards, it's very difficult then to say afterwards, because people will say, well, did that really happen? You're going to be questioned. Yeah. And we're just talking about sexually inappropriate comments here. We're not talking about any kind of assault, physical assault, and how difficult that must be. So, yeah, it's a difficult culture, and it's a difficult culture to be around that when no one's speaking up. But the onus should be on the senior production staff, absolutely.
Particularly when it's normalised on a set like that too. Aldo, you've worked with him before. What's your experience been like?
Well, I have to be honest, listening to Jackie, I'm quite shocked. Because the way that I know Gregg, and I've known him for 30 years, we've worked together in several different Masterchef scenarios. I mean, I've done TV nearly all my life, and I've worked in studios, I've worked in kitchens, and it's a completely different scenario, to be fair, to work in a Masterchef studio than work in a professional kitchen anyway.
Yes.
But I'm really shocked at the fact that he could come up with something like that, because I didn't think he had it in him. I didn't think that he was that kind of person. And I know he's very jokey, and he's always I think is that he's got that nervous energy in when he meets new people, especially female, and he cracks jokes all the time, good or bad. And I'm shocked the fact that he went that far.
Is there an element, Aldo, that it's a high-pressure environment? Any of those MasterChef studios are, because you've got the chefs that are trying to cook, whether they're the professionals like Jackie, whether they're the amateurs or the celebrities. And there's an element that Gregg's trying to be very jovial, albeit missing the mark, to relax and disperse a little bit of that pressure and that energy.
That is what his way of being kind, I thought, was. When I judged on MasterChef, when I guest judged on MasterChef, and when I gave people my recipes to cook, you don't realise how far outside their comfort zone people are, and how nervous they are in front of those stoves, because they're not cooks, they're not chefs. So if you add to that the pressure of being a little bit rude, then they're gonna crumble. And that's what Jackie's done.
Well, I mean, and the reality is that, Saida, that from Jackie's perspective, she was saying that when he made that comment that might have been from his intention to be jovial or whatever, it was very upsetting. She ended up in the toilets crying and trying to put herself together because she felt so broken by it. It was, I mean, it's awful to hear that you were put through that. I wonder what your reaction, Saida, to this, and also question of whether the BBC should have aired that semi-final last night.
Yeah, I mean, two parts to that. First of all, the experience that Jackie has had is the experience that women have in their workplaces all the time. I work in Parliament, and some of the language that you hear in Parliament from the most senior politicians, household names that we see, and this comes out all the time. And, there's been many a story that's been told about what happens in the corridors of power. So women in the professional space have had to put up with inappropriate language and this behaviour for a very long time. What makes it worse is where there's this issue where there is power against vulnerability. So where you've got judges against contestants, it makes it more acute. And that's exactly what Jackie was saying, that you end up in a situation where you think you work in an environment which is supposed to be professional. This isn't a girls' night out or a boys' night out where you're having a little bit of banter amongst friends. This is a professional environment, and it's also an environment where there are power dynamics in play. when it comes to airing MasterChef, I just think it's really important. It's important we're having this conversation, and it's important we talk about it in the broader context of where we are at the moment in the way in which women are treated in the workplace. But what we can't do is make this all about an individual who's currently facing allegations. Because to take MasterChef off our screens would be taking it away from everybody who's involved in production, all the other chefs who have not done anything wrong and aren't facing allegations, and particularly the contestants for whom this is such an important aspect of their life and could change their lives forever, as it has done with many MasterChef winners. So to take all of that away because of Gregg, I think would be inappropriate. And I think people making demands for that are just really, in some ways, not understanding that we can't focus all of this attention and allow other people to be harmed because of the allegations against him.
Nick, it's good to see you this morning. Thank you for joining us. I know you're still in the studio. You're going to be coming into our studio a little bit later on. I wonder what your listeners' reaction has been to this, because I looked at some of the response, and as Jackie was saying, she has had a lot of backlash already because she's come and spoken out, and there's a lot of vociferous defence of Gregg and what he and his behaviour and all that sort of stuff. What's been the reaction of your listeners?
Well, I have to tell you, it's been probably the most hotly debated subject so far this week, despite the various other issues that are going on in the world. And that's the first point. A lot of people are very angry that it's consuming so much of the media time and also the Prime Minister's time. I mean, here's something for your viewers to think about, Ben. Did the Prime Minister need to get involved via his official spokesperson, by the way, not directly, by, as I think Kat referenced, saying that the comments were misogynistic? That might be one for the viewers to think about. It's not as if there aren't other issues for this country to address. More broadly, it probably comes down... What surprises me, to Saida's point, is that there is a school of thought that is, come on, this bloke is sick. By the way, I don't agree with this, but let me just give you the theory. This bloke is 60. He would have grown up with Carry On films and Benny Hill. It's what the workplace was like when I was at work, so what's everyone getting exercised about? I would say to Saida's point, it is the power dynamic here. Yeah. If I had a granddaughter who was in her 20s, who was going to work in an industry, whether it be TV, advertising, politics, where there seemed to be a laissez-faire attitude and the talent, the senior politician, the whoever it might be, can make fairly offensive jokes, can talk about his prowess with his love life, and that poor 20, 21, 22-year-old girl or lad is subjected to that. That is what I won't put up with. But, Ben, to your point, a lot of people are saying it's a bit of storm over nothing, which has surprised me.
Saida, on that question about the Prime Minister, or indirectly via a spokesman weighing in on this, were you surprised that they chose to comment? I'm sure they were asked a question and they chose to comment like they did. They could have said, look, we aren't dwelling on things that aren't political today or whatever.
Yeah, I think what they should have said is there are allegations that are being made and there's a process that's going to take place and we'll let that process take place. I think that's what the Prime Minister should have said. I don't really think the spokesperson should have been dragged into commenting about this. And I think for all of us, I think it's really important that we do allow that process to take place, because in this country you are innocent until you're proven guilty. And even I think those individuals who've made the allegations would want the process to happen and for there to be clarity at the end of it. But I think what we should be discussing, especially post the election of Trump in the US, especially post the kind of comments we've seen from Andrew Tate and others post the election of Trump, where there almost seems to be a surge of the man, the misogynistic man, who thinks that actually the way in which he treats women or what he says about women is now fair game again. And those of us who thought that the battles about women being of equal worth and value, and that those liberal values where women were in charge of their own space and their dignity, have to wake up and smell the coffee, because unfortunately there is a strand now of misogyny, bad behaviour by men who think it's OK to be in positions of power and authority, and we do as women need to rethink how we deal with this new form of misogynism which we're now finding in the workplace. And it's deeply dangerous for a new generation of young women who are feeling incredibly nervous when they're being told things on the social networks, told things like, well, we don't have to care about your consent anymore. We don't have to care about what you think anymore. Stop being extreme feminazis. All of this language is now creeping in. And we mustn't allow the debate around these issues to go down that route, because absolutely we need to reassert the sense that women should be safe in the workplace, should have their dignity, and should have equal worth and value.
Aldo, what sort of damage is this doing to Masterchef? And do you think Masterchef is looking vulnerable at the moment?
Very. Is looking very vulnerable. But at the same time, Masterchef's not just about Gregg Wallace. Masterchef is about people's life. there's a lot of chefs, aspiring chefs on that show, that this show will change their life forever. And taking that off air, that's already been recorded anyway. People know that Masterchef is pre-recorded. So taking it off air is not going to really, apart from damaging a lot of people, it's not going to really help anything. Most importantly is the industry, the hospitality industry. You know, we don't want to be seen to be these horrible, vile people that can treat women in kitchens in different ways. You know, I certainly wouldn't allow that in my kitchen. You know, we're opening a new restaurant next week. God knows why. After 20 years, I'm going back in the restaurant business. But you know, we would never allow that. And
is it different now, though, Aldo, than it was 20 years ago, if not further?
That's what I was coming to. You know, 20, 30 years ago, it was a different, kitchens were different places than where they are now. You wouldn't be allowed to do any of those things that used to happen in the old days. But it's not old days or new days. It's, you know, it's respect. You have to have respect for the people you work with.
Yes.
And if you have any problems as a young, inspiring lady chef, go straight to the head chef. And if the head chef's not listening, go straight to the boss, straight away. These things need to be addressed straight away, not 20 years later.
Yeah.
This is what my problem is.
And this is the point that Jackie was making, though, Aldo, that actually it shouldn't always be left to the individual who's suffering this to raise it. Actually, where were the senior producers,
Production.
right?
Yeah.
If they were listening to, and clearly they knew about this was happening over a long period of time, or at least the allegations were being brought to their attention. What we see time and time and time again is those in positions of power fail these people who come forward with these allegations. And that's where I think we absolutely must put the spotlight and say, why didn't you call this out? Why didn't you do something about it?
Duty of care is huge, isn't it? Good to see you all this morning.
Thanks,
Nick, we'll see you in the studio
Aldo.
shortly. I know, Sadi, you're
Yes.
staying out. I'd love you to see you. Best of luck with the restaurant opening when it comes.
Thank you very
much. And Jackie, thank you for being here for us this morning. Can I just ask one question as well? I mean, obviously, it was quite a traumatic experience over the way, but would you still prefer the experience of, like, being part of MasterChef and being on it? Has that had a beneficial impact on your career regardless?
Oh, 100%. And I completely agree with what Aldo was saying. They can't not show the programme. The work that those chefs have put into this process and the production, it is an incredibly big show, and it will go on, and it will go on without Gregg because it's bigger than Gregg. And it shouldn't just be about him. I wholly agree with that. And it's changed my life. I'm a freelance chef now. You know, I make food for a living. I write about food. It's a dream making for many people.
Yeah. So it's a shame you had to go through what you had to along the way. Jackie, thank you for your thoughts and sharing that today. It's good to see you.
Oh, hello. Thank you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload tons of new content every single day. So hit the subscribe button, like all the videos, and don't miss out. We'll see you in the morning.